Summer is gone, and fall has officially taken hold. After months of festivities, it's time to bid farewell to state fairs with food, fun, and college football. But which state has the best? In nearly every best of list you see, the Great Minnesota Get-Together and the State Fair of Texas will be represented. So we crunched the numbers and checked in with some people involved to get to the bottom of it.
I don't know of a state fair that isn't a good time.
Celebrity chef Andrew Zimmern may be a bit biased, calling Minnesota his home for more than 3 decades. And while he calls Minnesota's entry into the state fair competition the greatest cultural event in the world, I mean, they do think that up there. I mean, that's a true thing. He understands state fairs throughout the nation have a lot to offer.
Especially if you like, everything from sensible foods like mini donuts and foot-long hot dogs and French fries made right in front of you to the outrageous and crazy foods that seem to be dominating.
It's so easy to focus on the delicious fried foods and other culinary creations, but state fairs are about so much more than that.
The State Fair of Texas started as a meeting ground for folks in agriculture and livestock to share best practices and come together. We, of course, didn't have the internet back then, and so it was the best way to bring everyone together and really make sure that we're sharing those new innovations and technologies.
Yeah, I mean, ag is at the core of what all fairs are about, and bringing that mission forward about supporting agriculture. That is how the fair began. It was about encouraging people to come here and build agriculture and industry in this area that people thought was a frozen tundra. So, I mean, that again is the core of what we do, and it still is today.
Taylor Pulfer is the communications director for the State Fair of Texas, and Renee Alexander is the CEO of the Minnesota State Fair. State fairs in Texas and Minnesota welcome millions of people each year, and that requires community buy-in.
The fair supports thousands of jobs, from event staff to local vendors. I believe we have upwards of 2,000 employees on our state fair payroll. But then when you think about concessionaires and all the other vendors out here, it's nearly 7,000 jobs that are created through these 24 days. And so that is a huge boost to the job market.
We have entrepreneurs that are on these fairgrounds that are building small businesses, that are sustaining businesses, kids that have their first job, retirees that are coming in to work during the fair.
And all of that equates to a major boon for the regions hosting those events.
So the last economic study that we did, the State Fair of Texas was able to generate up to $680 million from the North Texas economy alone. And so I think that goes to show the ripple effects that the fair event and the 24 days have on all of Dallas-Fort Worth.
It's been a while since we've done a full economic impact, but we believe we're about $300 million annually. So that's about the size of a Super Bowl that goes into a market.
You know, it's starting to seem like these two events have a lot in common, even though they're located like 1,000 miles apart, and they are not exactly rivals per se.
We all participate in a variety of different industry conferences and groups to make sure we're sharing best practices, because at the end of the day, we're not in competition with each other. We don't run at the same time of the year. We are not competing for the same audience per se. So in our eyes, being able to share our state fair, but then also share best practices with other state fairs, it just allows us to further make people aware of state fairs and the importance that they have in each and every community.
Well, that was a bit of a wash, wouldn't you say? It seems like two fairs with similar missions, if you will. I bet if we crunch the numbers, we can get to the bottom of this. The Minnesota State Fair closed its gates after Labor Day, while the State Fair of Texas runs through October 19th. So for the sake of clarity and good sportsmanship, we've pulled all our data from 2024. Let's start with attendance. Last year, the Minnesota State Fair welcomed, get this, more than 1.9 million visitors. That's right, nearly 2 million. Texas easily edged out the Great North with nearly 2.4 million howdies. But Big Tex has a few distinct advantages. Let's go to Straight Arrow News sports correspondent Chris Francis to break down the first.
Thanks, Craig. Yes, the second Saturday in October means the Red River rivalry between the University of Texas and the University of Oklahoma, named, of course, for the river that separates the two states, And it's one of the best scenes in all of college sports. It is appointment television for any college football fan. Ohio State, Michigan, Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. It's like that. A rivalry like none other. Listen, the season hasn't gone according to plan for Arch Manning and Texas, and Longhorn fans would admit that. They started number 1 in the nation, but 2 losses have dropped them out of the AP poll entirely. Oklahoma, on the other hand, undefeated, ranked number 6. Their star quarterback, John Mateer, is a Heisman candidate, and he could return from a hand injury to play in this game. That's how much it means. There have been Heisman Trophy winners on both sides of this rivalry, but no matter who's suiting up, the game played for over 100 years at the Cotton Bowl is an event that transcends football. Dallas is the midway point between the two schools, and some 200,000 fans will pack the fairgrounds Saturday. Close to 92,000 will attend the game, and the historic stadium is split in half right down the 50-yard line. You got fans in burnt orange on one side and crimson red on the other. Now, Texas has won more games in the rivalry overall, but Boomer Sooner has won 7 of the last 10.
The Golden Gophers technically do play their first game of the season during the fair, but their stadium is not on the fairgrounds, and they played Buffalo. That's where I'm from. Anyways, back to the script. It did not need to be a football game for it to be a draw. Its biggest day, the state fair that is, in 2024, had over 256,000 visitors in Minnesota. Texas has another advantage. Its 24-day run is the longest in the nation. Meanwhile, its Minnesotan counterpart is known for 12 days of fun. I mean, they go crazy there. And this is where soda starts shucking the husk off the corn. All right, let's do a little math. Since Minnesota's fair is shorter, it turns out the average daily attendance of 160,000 at the Minnesota State Fair easily eclipses the 99,000 in Texas. So who wins in a head-to-head attendance battle? It appears to depend on which number you think matters the most. Makes sense, right? But there's more to measuring a state fair than attendance. There's also the size of the space. Everything's bigger in Texas. Just ask W, right? Don't mess with Texas, don't mess with our state fair. Except the fairgrounds. Minnesota boasts a 322-acre fairgrounds, while the State Fair of Texas is seated on a paltry 277 acres. That's a lot of space to imagine. All right, so let's bring it back to football. Minnesota's grounds are about the size of 244 football fields. Texas, everything's bigger in Texas, they say, except here. Texas only equates to 210 football fields. While we're on to the way these fairs fill their space, the aptly named Top of Texas Tower is 500 feet tall and features sweeping vistas of the Metroplex. That even sounds big, right? In Minnesota, you can pretty much do the same thing at the Space Tower, but it only goes up 300 feet. Are either of these really rides? As for history, the State Fair of Texas first opened its gates in the fall of 1886, just 50 years after the founding of the Republic of Texas. In the very same fall, the Statue of Liberty was dedicated 1,000 or so miles north. The fair will celebrate its 140th anniversary next year. Minnesota, however, celebrated its 166th fair this year, and those are just official years. A couple of fun facts for you. The Minnesota State Fair started as a territorial fair in 1855. What is that? Does anybody know what a territorial fair is? I guess it's a fair in your territory, kind of like reflexive. All right, anyways, it was this territorial fair thing before it was even a state. It officially became known as the Minnesota State Fair in 1859. Remember that year? That was a year after statehood. And Teddy Roosevelt, by the way, this is cool. He gave the Speak Softly and Carry a Big Stick speech at, wait for it, the Minnesota State Fair in 1901. All right, we mentioned fried food earlier. So let's get into meat on a stick, right? Everybody goes to the fair hungry and then overeats. Last year, Fletcher's original Corny Dogs sold 550,000 dogs slathered in 1,800 gallons of mustard and 850 gallons of ketchup at the State Fair in Texas. Remember, everything's bigger in Texas, right? So that makes sense. In Minnesota, fairgoers are pronto pup people, meaning they prefer their hot dogs on a stick covered in pancake batter rather than traditional cornmeal batter. Pronto pups sold more than $2.3 million in their dogs. At about $7 a pop, you need a calculator for this, that's roughly 330,000 pups. It's big business, right? All right, so what's a fair without agriculture? Texas had 76 animal births including 43 piglets and 12 kids, baby goats, throughout the 2024 fair. Minnesota, on the other hand, had 159 animals birthed. Also at the Minnesota State Fair in 2024, there was a pumpkin weighing. And get this, one of the pumpkins weighed in excess of 1,800 pounds. It's almost like 2,000 pounds. I think that's huge. Can you imagine all the seeds, right? It could fill a whole city for all of Halloween. Texas, we're told, does not do produce. I thought everything was bigger and better in Texas. I guess not when it comes to produce, at least not for this story. Anyways, it's impossible to quantifiably rank which state fair is the best. But these are two of the biggest, with the richest history of tradition, and are important to millions of people in the regions they support. Hope you enjoyed this story. For Straight Arrow News, I'm Craig Negrelli. For more in-depth reporting, head to san.com and download the Straight Arrow News app. See you at the fair.